Okay, so the reports that we produce are at the national, regional, and local levels. So we produced a couple of national reports, one on Asian Americans and a separate report on Pacific Islanders. I think a lot of folks are familiar with the unique needs in those communities and recognize the importance of providing analyses specific to those communities. We produce a number of regional reports. One of our reports is on California, which has gotten a lot of use. There are also reports on the West, the Midwest, the Northeast, and the South. And then we also produce local reports on communities here in Southern California. Okay, so my presentation today will do two things. One, it'll take a look at the latest population estimates and see what they say about our changing communities, really with an eye towards looking at both established and emerging populations. And then secondly, we want to take a closer look at three metro areas, the largest between the coasts, and one of the fastest growing. So let's go ahead and dive in. So these latest Census Bureau population estimates show 21.4 million Asian Americans nationwide. That's 7% now of the national population. There's many of us can remember when that number was at 3%, right? And it just really demonstrates the growth of our communities. For Pacific Islanders, that number is well above 1 million, 1.5 million now, still less than 1% of the population. Okay. We all know about our community's tremendous ethnic diversity. This table looks at data on Asian American ethnic groups, and you can see the diversity with many newer groups showing up towards the bottom of this chart, Bhutanese, Malaysian, Sri Lankan populations. We'll talk about South Asian populations in a second. Obviously the bigger ones at the top, Chinese, Filipino, Indian, Vietnamese, and Korean. Okay, among Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians remain the largest PI group. But as I mentioned, data disaggregation really allows us to look closely at some really small communities, which you can see at the bottom of this chart. Some of these smaller populations have doubled or tripled in size over the last 10 years or so. These data are really valuable in helping to look at the unique needs of some of these smaller communities. Okay, so growth is a core part of the narrative in this presentation. So let's take a look at some of the growth figures. Okay, and again, I mentioned that these are population estimates from 2016. So between 2010 and 2016, so since the last decennial census, the Asian American population grew 21%. Okay, the Pacific Islander population grew 15%. In contrast, the nation's total population grew only 5% over that period.